Hey, yo. The topic of this video, guys, look at this environment that I'm in. Look at this fucking environment, guys. Fucking hell, man. Look at this environment, guys. The topic of this video, guys, is gonna be about. Look at the stairway, guys. It looks fucking sick as hell. It's a very nice environment, man. But the topic of this video, guys, is gonna be about, does prayer actually work? I want to delve into like now religion and stuff like that, and I want to really talk about the concept of like prayer, really see like kind of test the whole theory behind like praying to like prayer. Does prayer actually work? What is prayer? Prayer is like when us human beings, we put our hands together, we call out to a higher power to solve our problems and issues. That's what prayer sort of means. Obviously there's academic definitions and etc, but I'm not going to really waste your time with that. The topic of this video, guys, is going to be about, does prayer actually work? Or is it all just a bunch of mumbo jumbo? You know, in Christianity and Islam and Judaism as well, I don't know about Judaism, but I know in Christianity, Islam, prayer is very much emphasized. It's very strongly mentioned that prayer can actually solve your issues and problems. If you have any problems or issues, you just pray to God and you'll get your issues solved, and everything will like be very merry and happy again. If you just put your hands together and you pray to God, and everything's gonna be all right. I don't know, that's very dubious to me. I was always so confused about the whole concept of like prayer, especially regarding religion. Does prayer actually work? I know for sure that there has to be like countless people that were like fucking hell. I always feel like someone's just gonna come and smack me on the side of my head, man. I know for sure there was like countless people that were fucking dying of like cancer and other types of terminal illnesses, and you know, people were praying so much, but these people still died. There's so many people that get cancer or some other fucked up disease, and they fucking just die. They don't make it to the end. They don't just instantly recover. That always convinced me that maybe perhaps prayer is just a bunch of bullshit, that praying to God it's not going to actually fix any of your issues. Obviously it's kind of, I don't know, does prayer actually work? I know for sure, guys, that there's so many people that fucking get cancer and some other shit, or some other bullshit, and they have to deal with this type of health problem and stuff, and they get fucking cancer, and the people around them start to pray to God, but it doesn't fix anything. These types of people that get cancer, they typically just die of cancer or something, or they have to get surgery. Then prayer isn't the only thing that's going to help them out. You know what I mean? Does prayer actually work? Because prayer is like one of the components, especially to religion, especially the Abrahamic faith. Prayer should be something that proves the Abrahamic faiths, right? Especially Christianity, Islam, Judaism. Prayer, like, you know, like in Christianity, Islam, Judaism, it sort of is mentioned in the Bible and the Quran that if you pray to God, he'll come and fix your problems. To some extent, it's mentioned a little bit in the Bible, in the Quran as well, to some extent. But you know, does prayer actually work? Because if it can't be proven that prayer works, then that means that this is kind of the Bible, Quran is kind of just a bunch of, it's just all nonsense then, isn't it, right? So yeah, this is actually very important, guys. Does prayer actually work? Again, you can just do this type of experiment. Pray to God. Have like we all have some types of issues. Pray to God. See if the issues just quickly go away after you pray to God. Most cases, it's not going to happen. Like, if you pray to God, whatever, nothing's going to change unless there's some type of coincidence. Unless like something happens. I don't know. It seems all like to me that perhaps it might be just a bunch of nonsense. Then, because the Bible, Quran mentions prayer as like very important. Prayer can actually heal you and solve your issues. Obviously, do you guys know about the placebo effect? Let's just say you have some type of illness, you pray to God and you believe that God's actually helping you, but that might just be the placebo effect, and so you quickly recover, but you don't know that might be the placebo effect. That might not even actually be because of the fact that you were praying, but it could just be because of the fact there's something called the placebo effect. You need to look into that, guys. That's very interesting. The placebo effect, which is just the power of belief. The placebo effect is so interesting to some extent. Placebo effect, guys, you got to look into that. But does prayer actually work? It's such a dubious thing, guys. It's so dubious and interesting to me. It's such an important part of religion as well. Prayer. Does prayer actually work though? Especially in regarding Christianity, Islam, prayer is actually in the Bible and the Quran. It's mentioned a lot that prayer can fix. If you're suffering from any type of bullshit, if you pray to God, he'll come and help you out and he'll solve all your issues. That's so dubious to me and bullshit. It seems so obviously that's bullshit to me, because there's like so many people that get cancer and all these other issues with their body, and they just fucking die in the hospital even after like all their loved ones start praying for them to get better. They always typically die. You know, in movies, even though it's a movie, obviously, but still, it's like the person. There's like always like some movies, right? That certain people, they get like issues with their body, they get health problems, and then they get put into the hospital, and then people are praying for them to recover. In most cases, it actually depends on the movie, but like a lot of the times, the person just dies in the hospital. But in real life, that's also very much the case, that people get brain cancer, some other fucked up health problems, put into the hospital, and they fucking die. The prayer doesn't actually work. You know, that's kind of fucking makes me, that really makes me wonder if religion is all just a bunch of nonsense bullshit. Especially Christianity, Islam. Prayer is something that's so, like, it's mentioned so much in the Bible and the Quran and the prayer, that if you pray to God, whatever bullshit you're suffering from is going to disappear if you pray to God. But like, people get cancer and they get put into a hospital, and then they fucking slowly die. They deteriorate in such an atrocious way. Prayer doesn't actually fix their issues. Prayer is fucking, seems to me to be just a bunch of bullshit. I do think so. So many people get put into a hospital, they get cancer or some other issue, they get put into a hospital, and they fucking just die of cancer or some other bullshit. Even after their loved ones pray for them, prayer doesn't seem to be fucking doing anything for anyone, man. I fucking swear. Does prayer actually work? Because if you look at religion, it's Christianity, Islam. Prayer is so important, especially with Islam, because you have to pray 5 times a day. You have to pray 5 times a day to Allah, and etc. and stuff like that. It's like very mandatory that you pray to God every single day. Allah, in Islam, you have to pray to God a lot. Otherwise, if you don't pray to God, you're not going to get any type of like benefits in this life or in the afterlife as well. But prayer, does it actually work? That's such an interesting question. In terms of like science, can we like do like conduct like experiments, see if like prayer can actually do anything for anyone? You got the placebo effect. You got the placebo effect and all that type of stuff. There's like the placebo effect, though. The placebo effect fucking makes it so tricky, because like someone might be suffering from some type of illness, and they pray to God, and they think God's actually helping them, and they feel better, but it could just be the placebo effect. The placebo effect is such a fucking nuisance. I wonder how that's even possible. You know, like there was some YouTuber called Hamza Ahmed. He talks about this. He said that like the placebo effect is literally just the power of belief. And there was like 2 people, they were given like a milkshake, and there was like the nutritional value of the milkshakes was different and stuff, but they drank it. They drank the milk. Both these like participants in this type of study, they both drank the milkshake, and one of them was told that it was actually worse for their health, and the other one was told it was like better, and their body composition was different. And the weird fact about all of this is, the weird coincidence here is that both the milkshakes were identical, but it affected the people's bodies, the 2 different participants' bodies, differently, because they were told different pieces of information, so they believed different things, and that affected their biochemistry differently, their bodies differently. They literally digested the same milkshake differently just because of how they believed that it was like a different milkshake. They were given different pieces of information. So the power of belief is fucking so insanely important. When you believe in something, that fucking alters everything, guys. It changes how your body responds to things. Hamza Ahmed, I love that guy. He also talks about like boners. Like, if you think about a hot woman in your head, if you think about an attractive woman in your head, your dick gets hard. That's just through the power of belief. Your body thinks that there's like actually an attractive woman in front of you. Just through the power of belief, you can literally change your biochemistry in your body, how your body responds and it reacts to certain things. It's so insane. The placebo effect is literally the power of belief. That is fucking insane, guys. The placebo effect is fucking such a... it's not something that you could just fucking take lightly. It's so fucking mesmerizing, so interesting, enchanting. The placebo effect. You guys got to do some research into the placebo effect. It's such a big fat enigma. There's no like fucking proper explanation for it. That if you believe strongly in something, that it can alter your whole biochemistry and your body's behavior and reactions to things. The placebo effect. That's kind of a very much off topic, though. Back to the topic of this video at hand, because the topic of this video, guys, is, does prayer actually work? Christianity, Islam, prayer is so important in these religions, especially Islam, mandatory that you pray 5 times a day. But does prayer actually work? That's kind of like, so many people get fucking, they get all these bullshit issues. They suffer from so many different types of bullshit problems. They get cancer or some other bullshit, and they get put in a hospital, and they're slowly dying, and their loved ones pray for them and stuff. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't work. Most people that get these types of terminal illnesses, when they get put into a hospital, they fucking just fucking die. A lot of the cases, these people that get these issues, they just fucking die. They don't fucking make it to the end. It's so insane. They just fucking die, man. So many people, they get these types of bullshit health problems and issues. They get put into a hospital. Their loved ones are praying around them, and typically, even with all that type of prayer going on, they just fucking die. There's so many people that get fucking cancer and some other bullshit, and they fucking die in the hospital. Even after like, even after like so much prayer. So that kind of proves to me that perhaps prayer might just actually be a bunch of nonsense. But you know, that if prayer is nonsense, that means that like Christianity, Islam is nonsense, because in Christianity and Islam, the Bible, the Quran, prayer is like so important. It's mentioned in the Bible and the Quran that if you pray to God, He will come and fix all your problems up for you. He'll fix your issues. He'll fucking help you out a ton. He'll fucking solve all your bullshit problems. We know that prayer doesn't fucking do anything. We know that prayer is just a bunch of bullshit, man. And to some extent, people get cancer, they get fucking put in the hospital and they fucking just slowly die. They get put in the hospital, they fucking slowly die with like cancer or some other bullshit. They get fucking cancer and they fucking get put into a hospital and they fucking die. They get fucking, it's so funny that some people, they get fucking tumors, cancer or whatever. They get some other bullshit problems, they get put in the hospital and they just fucking die in the hospital, even with all that type of prayer going on. Does prayer actually work? Because, you know, in Christianity, Islam, prayer is so fucking important, guys. Prayer is so fucking important, guys. Prayer is like so, it's critically mentioned. It's critically mentioned. It's so like, it's very much, it's so it's literally mentioned so much in the Bible or Quran. Like if you pray to God, all your bullshit problems will disappear. But people get fucking cancer, they get put in the hospital, they fucking die of cancer. It doesn't prayer, even after their loved ones pray for them, it just fucking does nothing for them. They just get fucking cancer and they fucking die in the hospital. It makes me wonder, again, if it's all just a bunch of bullshit. Prayer is so fucking, it's such an important part of Islam and Christianity. Islam, in Islam you have to pray 5 times a day. That's very mandatory. But it seems to me that it's all this bullshit. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't work. Because people get fucking cancer and all that, and they fucking die of cancer. Prayer doesn't fix their issues. Typically, most people, they get some type of health problem and they fucking die in the hospital. Even after their loved ones pray for them to recover. Christianity, Islam, it's so interesting to think about this, guys. Does prayer actually work? It's all fucking, look at the floor, man. Does prayer actually work? It's very much important. It's very important for the Christianity, Islam, prayer, that you pray to God and He fixes up your bullshit problems. Is that true? Or is it all just a bunch of bullshit? Does prayer actually work? Or is it all just a bunch of bullshit? Is it all just a bunch of bullshit? I'm actually, if you're a Muslim, Christian, whatever, you have to, if you read the Bible and the Quran, it talks so much about prayer and stuff, and how prayer actually can work and solve your bullshit problems. I'm so curious about this. Does prayer actually work, or is it all just a bunch of bullshit? Because we know, like, again, people fucking get cancer or some other bullshit. They fucking in the hospital and they're slowly dying. So that wouldn't that kind of suggest that it's all bullshit? Prayer doesn't actually work? I don't know. It's fucking such a big fat mystery, guys. It's so interesting to me, though. The whole concept of prayer is so important for religion and all that type of stuff. Does prayer actually work, though, guys? Oh, fucking hell, man. These longer format videos, these long videos that I record outside, they're so difficult to make, but it's worth it. Because I get to share, like, my thoughts and, like, my ideas on certain things. I get to, like, completely flesh it out in this very long 40-minute video. These types of videos, I also make sure I don't really edit these videos too much, because it will be 40 minutes of footage. Editing that up, it's going to take fucking hours and hours. Anyway, does prayer actually work? Let's get back to the placebo effect, because the placebo effect is just the power of belief, guys. What you believe in, that can literally change how your body responds and reacts to certain things. What you believe in and all that type of stuff, it fucking alters how you respond and react to things. It fucking alters and changes how you respond and react to certain things. What you fucking believe in, guys, is so fucking important. Hamza Ahmed, he talks about this in one of his videos. He said that there was like 2 participants, and there was like a study, and they were given like a milkshake. The milkshake, they thought that it was like a different type of milkshake. They were given like different pieces of information regarding this milkshake, and they both processed the milkshake. Both these participants processed the milkshake differently depending on what type of information they were given, even though it was the same milkshake in terms of like what it was made of. And that's so fucking insane. What you believe in can change everything. It can literally change how you digest and process food just through the power of belief. It's so weird and fucking mystical. I don't know. The placebo effect, which is just the power of belief, guys. What you fucking believe in, that fucking changes everything, guys. It can alter everything about how you respond and react to the world and all that type of stuff. The power of belief, guys, that's so fucking important, man. The placebo effect, which is the power of belief, that is fucking the placebo effect, isn't it? It's a fucking insane thing to think about. The fact that you can just literally believe in something, and it can fucking alter everything about how your body responds and reacts to certain things is so fucking insane. Back to the topic of the video though, guys. Does prayer actually work? So many people get fucking cancer, some other bullshit. They get put in a hospital and they fucking die, and their loved ones are praying for them. Still, they fucking die. Does that prove to you that it's kind of, perhaps it might just all be bullshit than the prayer thing? But prayer is so important for Christianity, Islam, the Bible, and the Quran. It talks so much about like fucking prayer and how prayer actually can solve all your bullshit problems. But does prayer actually work, guys, or is it just all a bunch of bullshit? Does prayer actually work, or is it all just a bunch of bullshit, guys? If you read the Bible, the Quran, prayer is emphasized to such a massive extent. Prayer is so important regarding like Christianity, Islam, the Bible, Quran talks fucking so much about the whole thing about prayer. How if you pray strong enough, if you pray very strongly, all your bullshit problems disappear. It's kind of a little bit dubious, I don't know. It's so interesting to me though. If you pray to God, all your problems disappear. Does that hold any water? I don't think so, guys. So many people in this world, they fucking get so much, they suffer so much, and they fucking pray so much as well, but they still suffer and they still die a horrible, miserable death. So many people in our history have been like fucking fatally injured, or they suffered from some type of terminal illness, disease, and they were praying so much, it didn't do anything. They fucking died on the spot. The prayer didn't actually solve their bullshit problems, guys. So does prayer actually work, or is it all just a bunch of fucking mumbo jumbo bullshit? I don't think so. I think that prayer can't be proven to work in any meaningful way. Obviously, you got the placebo effect. If someone's terminally ill and they pray to God and they think that God's actually helping them, maybe through the power of belief, through the placebo effect, they might be feeling better. But I don't know. It's so tricky to me. But if you cut someone's hand off and you pray to God to repair that cut off wound, we know that it's not going to do anything. If you cut someone's hand off and you pray to God to fix that issue, it's not going to work, obviously. So prayer, in my opinion, I don't think prayer it can't be proven to be working at all. I don't think prayer can actually do anything for anyone. I think it doesn't work, man. Maybe God actually is real, but he just doesn't give a fuck about your prayer and your suffering. That's even like that. That's also a possibility. That maybe perhaps prayer, actually, maybe God still does exist. He just doesn't care about your prayers. He just wants you to suffer for whatever reason. Maybe, I don't know. It's very psychopathic. I don't know. It's very interesting though. Does prayer actually work, guys? It's fucking, I'm gonna give you my 2 pennies on this. I don't think so, guys. Because you look at these people, they get fucking cancer, some other bullshit, they go to put into a hospital, they fucking die slowly. But maybe perhaps a lot of people would say, well, sometimes certain people that have cancer, they recover and stuff. Maybe prayer works in that regard. Maybe prayer works in that regard. I don't know. It's kind of a little bit dubious, because I know it's not sometimes like people, they get some terminal illness but they recover, but those like cases are very like fucking rare. There's so many people that get fucking terminal illnesses and they fucking just die even through a lot of prayer. Even though they get a lot of prayer for them, they just die. A lot of people, if you're religious, you might just think it's all just a part of God's plan. He just wants some people to go and some people to stay on this planet Earth. I don't know. It's very interesting to me though that so many people get fucking bullshit problems and they just fucking still suffer from those problems even after a lot of prayer. Like if you turn into a bum poverty and you pray to God, money's just not gonna fall out of the sky. If you turn into a bum and you're on the street and you pray to God, your problems aren't going to be solved at all. So does prayer actually work? If you turn into a bum and you're on the street praying to God, that's not going to fucking do anything. You're not going to have money falling from the sky if you pray to God. So it's, in my opinion, I think it's all just to me, prayer seems to be a little bit bullshit to some extent. I don't know. Because you get fucking cancer, you're in the hospital, so many people fucking just die there. Even after a lot of prayer, they still fucking die. They die so fatally and badly. It appears to me that prayer fucking does not do anything for anyone. Maybe through the placebo effect, but some people say it's just all God's plan. Some people are just meant to die of cancer. I don't know. It's fucking, I don't know, fair enough. I don't know. What about little kids? They don't even have, like, they haven't even lived a long life. So do they deserve to fucking get killed at such a like young age? I don't know. It's fucking a little bit dubious. It's so fucking dubious, guys, to me. But if you're all about Christianity, Islam, if you know anything about these religions, you know, like in the Bible, the Quran, prayer is like so important. It's mentioned so much that prayer is actually very important. It can fix and solve all your problems and issues. But to me, just all of it just seems to be bullshit, man. Why is it that some people fucking get cancer and they fucking die? Even after so many people pray for them, they fucking still die of cancer. It's so both. Seems to me that it's all bullshit. But if you're very religious, you might think it's all just a part of God's plan. Some people are meant to die of cancer. Some people are meant to stay alive. I don't know, fair enough. Maybe perhaps that might be fair enough. That's actually very, I don't know, maybe fair enough. I don't know. To me, it just seems like it's all bullshit, man. And fucking hell. If you get fucking some issue, you fucking get some type of bullshit problem, you pray to God, it's fucking, most cases it's not going to do anything for you. You're just going to fucking die of some type of fatal illness or disease or issue. I don't know. Oh fuck, I feel something in my head, man. I feel fucking lightheaded. Shit. Fucking hell. Anyway, I gotta keep pumping through the video. This prayer actually work. It's kind of fucking, it's so dubious, guys. It's so dubious. Because I know for sure sometimes people get brain cancer, some other fucked up issues. They get put into a hospital bed and they fucking, loved ones are praying for them to recover and they just fucking end up dying. That's so fucking horribly twisted and fucking insane. This prayer actually worked, and I'm of the very strong opinion, guys, that perhaps to some extent it's just all bullshit. Why do I feel so lightheaded? Fucking hell. There's something in my brain, man. I swear it might be a tumor or something. I've got to get that checked out. Does prayer actually work? Does prayer actually work? Such a nice environment that I'm in, guys. Look at this. Look at this, guys. Does prayer actually work? It's so dubious to me, guys. Because you know the placebo effect. It could, like, sometimes people get some bullshit problems and issues, and they get some bullshit problems and they're terminally ill, but they believe that God's helping them, so because of the placebo effect, because of the power of belief, they start to feel recover. And that's very tricky then, because how are you supposed to figure out if it's not just the placebo effect, if God's actually helping you, or if it's just if it's just the placebo effect, the power of belief is so insane to me, guys. Does prayer actually work though? It's a fucking mystery, guys. Does prayer actually work? It's such a big fat mystery to me, guys. Prayer, does it actually work? Or is it all just bullshit? It's so dubious to me. So many people fucking get some bullshit problems, health problems, whatever. They fucking in the hospital and then they fucking slowly die. So even after so many people pray for them, they fucking still die at the end of stuff. So is that like, what's that about? So it seems to me that it's all bullshit. If you look at Christianity, Islam, if you read the Bible, Quran, prayer is so important, guys. It's mentioned so much, so like strongly in the Bible, the Quran, that if you pray to God, He's gonna fix up all your bullshit problems. That's so strongly emphasized. What the hell? if you pray to God, He's gonna fix up all your bullshit problems for you guys. It doesn't matter what you have, what you're suffering from. If you pray to God, He's gonna fix all your bullshit problems. Even though people fucking get cancer and they fucking die in the hospital, man, it's fucking, what's that about? And does prayer actually work? It's so dubious and tricky to figure this out, guys. It seems to me it's just all a bunch of bullshit. It seems to me that it's just a bunch of bullshit, man. I want to believe, but it seems to me it's just so difficult to believe that prayer actually works when so many people fucking get cancer and they die in the hospital bed. Fucking hell, man. I feel fucking lightheaded as shit. Man, I feel fucking... something's going wrong with my brain, man, I swear. Anyway, does prayer actually work, or is it all just a bunch of bullshit? To me, it seems like it's just all a bunch of bullshit, guys. I honestly do believe that prayer is just fucking bullshit to some extent. Because people get fucking cancer and they fucking die in the hospital, and what's that about? Maybe some people might interpret that as being it's just all a part of God's plan. That some people are just meant to die of fucking cancer and stuff. I don't know. That's very sadistic and fucking psychopathic, though. But I don't know. Maybe perhaps you're right. It could just be God's plan. I don't know. It's so dubious. If you read the Bible and the Quran, it's so like fucking. It's so wishy-washy. The Abrahamic God is I see him as like a trickster to some extent, like, because if you look at the Bible, the Old Testament, Yahweh Adonai fucking commands genocide. Do you know that? He commands fucking genocide in the Old Testament. He tells the Israelites to kill the Amalekites. Oh, what's going on with my body, man? What's going on with my body? If you look at the Old Testament, the Adonai Yahweh, he fucking tells the Israelites to genocide the Amalekites. The Old Testament God can be very cruel and merciless, but in the New Testament, Jesus is all about forgiveness and loving. But even in the Old Testament, there is some forgiveness and loving. So the Abrahamic God can be like very cruel, psychopathic, but also forgiving and loving. It's like two-faced, like two sides to this deity. It's quite insane. Oh, fucking hell, man, my brain. What the fuck is going on with my brain? I don't know why I feel so lightheaded. If you read the Old Testament, the fucking Adonai Yahweh tells the Israelites to genocide the Amalekites. That's kind of like very sadistic, psychopathic, but in the New Testament, there's like some forgiveness and mercy. It's like it's so weird. If you read the Bible and Quran, it's so weird. It's so hard to interpret the Bible, Quran properly. So many different ways to interpret the Bible and the Quran. And the Abrahamic God is so difficult to make sense of it all. It's so many fucking seems there's all these like seeming contradictions, and it's so difficult to fucking piece everything together properly. It's so weird. The genocides and the fucking bloodshedding in the Old Testament, but if you read the New Testament, it's all about fucking forgiveness and loving. It's fucking all this like fucking contradictions. Specifically for the Bible, I don't know in the Quran, maybe perhaps, I think actually Allah is more forgiving and loving than Adonai Yahweh of the Bible. Allah of the Quran is like so much more forgiving and loving and merciful. That's why if you're watching my videos, I do encourage you to be more closer to Islam, because in the Quran, it doesn't kill babies and children like Adonai Yahweh in the Bible. Allah is actually merciful, forgiving and stuff like that. He said no compulsion in religion. Allah actually cares about you and stuff and helps you out. Charity, zakat, Islam is all about that, man. The Bible, Christianity, what the fuck? I don't know. Yahweh in the Old Testament, so much bloodshedding, fucking killing kids. Yahweh, Adonai tells the Israelites to fucking genocide the Amalekites. There's so much fucking bloodshedding in the fucking Old Testament and the Bible. Fucking hell. Even the New Testament, Jesus fucking calls a woman a dog. There was like a woman, she like asking for help, and Jesus calls her a dog because she's not an Israelite. There's fucking all this fucked up bullshit in the fucking Bible. But in the Quran, Allah is so much more. If you read the Bible, Quran carefully, you're gonna see the more beauty in the Quran and in Islam. Allah actually cares about you. Allah talks about charity, forgiveness, loving, all that type of stuff. Allah actually is so much more admirable as a deity. Allah is so much more admirable than your Adonai Yahweh. Yahweh fucking. If you can see them as two different beings, because some people would say that it's the same God, it's like the Abrahamic God, but I do think it's actually a different God. Because if you look at the Old Testament, Yahweh Adonai tells the Israelites to fucking kill the Amalekites. So Allah is actually a lot more forgiving and loving compared to like Adonai Yahweh of the Bible. But anyway, that's up to you for you to decide. But if you read through the Bible and the Quran carefully, you would see that more beauty in Islam in the Quran than in the Bible, because the Bible, it's all fucked up, man. All this bloodshedding and genocides and all that bullshit. What the fuck is all that about? The Israelites get told to genocide the Amalekites. It's so fucked up, man. What's all that fucked up bullshit about, man? If you read the fucking Bible, the Quran, very meticulously, carefully, I'm telling you, you're gonna see more beauty in Islam, the Quran, not in the Bible, the fucking Bible in the Old Testament. Adonai Yahweh, fucking, there's so much bloodshedding and fucking merciless killing. It's so fucked up. Adonai Yahweh tells the Israelites to fucking kill the Amalekites and kills babies, children, genocide, so much fucked up bullshit in the fucking Bible, man. The Quran's so much more beautiful. It's just that it's all like twisted around now because terrorism and all that bullshit. That people think that Islam's actually more violent than Christianity, even though Islam's a lot better off. But anyway, that's up to you for you to decide, guys. Does prayer actually work? There's so many fucking people get cancer and some bullshit issues, and they're slowly dying and stuff. And they pray to God, but it doesn't fucking do anything for anyone. It's not at all. It's all dubious, man. But I think maybe perhaps God, but look at the placebo effect. I do think that maybe God created like the placebo effect as like some type of aid for us to like recover, maybe perhaps. So maybe prayer might actually work through the placebo effect. The placebo effect, if you believe in the theory of evolution, all that type of Darwinism stuff, how do you explain the placebo effect? If we believe strongly in something, our entire body can change drastically, or how we respond and react to certain things can change drastically just because of what we believe in. So maybe perhaps through the placebo effect, maybe prayer does actually work. Maybe God created the placebo effect to help us out. We get some issues, we pray strongly and we believe in that, and then we would start to slowly recover. So maybe prayer actually to some extent does work through the placebo effect. The placebo effect, maybe perhaps that is like the avenue for prayer to work. I don't know, seems very interesting. I do know that in Christianity, Islam, it's all about this. It's also very strongly mentioned. It's like life is sort of like a test. To test your morality, your ethics as a human being. You're put to the test, and so maybe perhaps prayer. Maybe that's why God, if you get fatally injured, God's not meant to help you out, because it's all about like testing you and seeing how you respond and react to certain events. Maybe perhaps that could explain why prayer isn't like it doesn't work in such a dramatic way. Like you get your hand cut off, your hand doesn't regenerate. It's because it's all a part of a test. How are you going to respond to that? You get your hand's cut off. How are you going to respond to that? How are you going to react to that? God wants to test you out. It could all just be a big fat test, and just kind of a little bit. Still, some people might see that as being bullshit, but I think that could be actually very reasonable. Maybe that's why like prayer doesn't work in a very dramatic way. Like you get fucking some bullshit problem happens, and because Christianity, Islam, it does talk about like how this life is like a test. You're being constantly tested. You're getting tested a lot. You're being pushed and swayed side to side. You're getting tested. And God wants to see how you're going to respond and react to certain events and scenarios. And maybe fair enough then, maybe perhaps prayer, it's not meant to work in such a dramatic way. Like you getting some terminal illness, maybe that's just a test. He's trying to help you, trying to see how you're going to respond to that type of test. Everything's just sort of like a test to some extent. I do know in Islam it's all about, talks about like a lot that life is just a test. You get all these problems, suffering problems and issues. It's all about how you're going to respond and react to these problems. It's all like a big fat test to see your characteristics, your ethics, your morality. And fair enough then, I don't know. Because, you know, if paradise exists, why would God make this planet a paradise? Because we've got to, like, heaven and hell, like, what's the point of heaven if Earth is already a paradise? Maybe that's why there's so much suffering and fucked up bullshit in this planet. Because it's all meant to be like a fucking test. Because heaven, why go to heaven if Earth's already a paradise? Like that's why some people always ask about like suffering and the problem of evil and suffering and all that type of stuff. Yeah, but that's all just to test us out to see how we're going to respond and react. Because heaven, why would God create heaven then if there's no suffering on Earth? What's the point of heaven? We can just stay on Earth then. Because maybe that's why suffering is so it exists on our planet. Because it's all about testing us and seeing how we're going to respond and react. And then we get to like paradise, and then all the suffering disappears. What's the point of like having heaven if there's no like hell? To like you're not even going to appreciate heaven and paradise if you're not going to see like all the suffering and pain on this planet Earth. Maybe I do actually think that's some way that's how you can kind of like sort the whole issue and problem of suffering and evil out. Because it's all about testing us and testing our ethics and morality. Because why have heaven and paradise? What's the point of heaven and paradise if there's no like suffering on Earth? Because Earth's pretty much already a paradise, and so maybe perhaps fair enough. That's why suffering exists, and also the Garden of Eden. Eve eating the apple. I don't know, it's all so mysterious and dubious. It's such a mystery. to some extent. This problem of suffering and evil and all that type of bullshit. A lot of you might have your own opinions. I don't know. I do encourage you to have your own opinions. It's such an interesting thought exercise though, guys. Does prayer actually work? It's so interesting. And I'm fucking out here in this fucking beautiful fucking part here with the trees up here, man, and the fucking stairway there. You got the trees up there. Does prayer actually work? Actually, to some extent, maybe that's why suffering. Some people say, well, why is there so much suffering on this planet? Which is kind of a big fat side tangent, but I think it's all about testing us and stuff. Because paradise, why would God create heaven if Earth's already a paradise? That's why there's so much suffering and problems, because we're meant to like react to those problems and try and solve them, and God's testing us and trying to test our ethics and morality. Fair enough then, I don't know, maybe that kind of wraps everything up for the whole suffering issue. But anyway, back to the topic of this video. That's a big fat side tangent. I want to stay on topic, because does prayer actually work? That is so important, guys. Does prayer actually work? Does it do you any favors if you pray to God? The placebo effect is something that's very interesting. The power of belief. So you're fucked up badly, but you believe you're getting better because God's healing you. That could actually do you wonders. So maybe God created the placebo effect to help us out. I don't know. The problem of suffering and evil. So many people get contentious about that. So many people get so fucking contentious and uppity about the problem of suffering and evil. And maybe prayer kind of, obviously that's a big fat side tangent, but I think that why would God create heaven if Earth's already a paradise? You get it, the suffering and all that type of stuff. It's all about like testing us in our ethics, morality. Fair enough then. Back to the topic of this video though. Does prayer actually work? Does it actually work? Fucking hell. Does prayer actually work? Not in a dramatic way, but if you look at the placebo effect, if you get like some type of shitty illness, like you get the flu, you believe God's helping you, that can actually do you wonders. So prayer, to some extent, through the placebo effect might actually work. But if it would be very dramatic, in a very dramatic sense, if I cut your hands off, praying to God's not going to make those hands grow back. You know what I mean? It's never been proven that if I cut your hands off, praying to God, that's not going to make your hands grow back. I don't know. It's so dubious and tricky. But if you know anything about fucking Christianity, Islam, the Bible, the Quran, prayer is like talked so much about in the Bible and the Quran that if you pray to God, that's going to do you wonders. Obviously, we know that's to some extent bullshit. Look at the fucking field there, man. Looks so pretty and beautiful, man. Does prayer actually work? I'm of the very strong opinion, guys, that perhaps it's just all a bunch of bullshit, and prayer perhaps, not in a dramatic way, but maybe perhaps God made the placebo effect. Maybe because the placebo effect it kind of makes it all so tricky, because if you get the flu or something, you believe God's helping you out. The placebo effect, guys, just because you believe God's helping you out, that can fucking solve your problems, guys. Your cancer, all that bullshit can start to disappear if you just believe God's helping you out. Not cancer, but like flu, some minor illness. If you believe God's helping you out, that can help you out. That can actually, the placebo effect, just because you believe in God and He's helping you out, that can solve your issues. But if we're going to be very dramatic, if I cut your hands off, you pray to God, that's not going to actually work. So in a dramatic sense, does prayer actually work? I think not in a dramatic way, but in a very minor way through the placebo effect. Maybe perhaps it does work. Maybe that's what God wants. That He just wants to. He doesn't want you to like, because you need to suffer the consequences of your actions. Let's say that you run around the road and you got your legs broke. If you prayed to God and He fixed your legs, you're not going to learn your lesson. So maybe perhaps that's why, in a dramatic way, that prayer doesn't actually work, because you're not going to learn your lesson. If everyone's just going to become reckless, then you do some dumb shit, you break your legs, you pray to God, that fixes that issue for you, back to you're not going to learn a lesson. So maybe perhaps, fair enough then, maybe not in a dramatic way, but I do think through the placebo effect, maybe perhaps prayer actually might work, because if you believe that God's helping you out, that can is actually scientifically proven that can actually do you wonders, guys, in terms of like your physical health. Like if you believe that God is actually helping you out through the placebo effect, just because you believe in God and you believe that He's helping you out, that can actually do you wonders, guys. But not in a dramatic sense. You ran around the road, you broke your legs. If praying to God's not going to fix that issue, but maybe perhaps God made it that way. Because you need to learn your lesson. Because if you're doing dumb shit and you're going to fucking break your legs because you're being a fucking retard. you need to learn your lesson. So maybe fair enough, because in Islam and Christianity, Islam, it's all about like ethics, morality, testing you as a human being and your characteristics and your character. Fair enough. But does prayer actually work? Not in a dramatic sense, but through the placebo effect. It actually does work in a very minor way. You get the flu, some minor illness, you pray to God, you think that God's actually helping you out. That can actually do you wonders, guys. Wonders. That can actually do you wonders. But anyway, I think that's about it. I'm going to wrap this video up now. That's about it, guys.